We move on to our next topic, that is by Dr. Abhinav Dhami. He'll be speaking on management of giant retinal tear. Dr. Abhinav Dhami is consultant retina, cataract and uvea and ROP services in Dhami Eye Care Hospital, Ludhiana. He has done his MBBS from Government Medical College, Amritsar, and MS from HIHT University, Dehradun. Then he did his retina fellowship at Shankar Nethralaya, Chennai, and in his surgical experience, he has done he's a prolific cataract as well as a vitreoretinal surgeon. He has done more than 4,000 phacos and more than 1,000 vitreoretinal surgeries. Dr. Abhinav, please, you can share your screen now.
I think my everything visible.
Yeah, your screen is visible.
Hi. Thank you, Dr. Sangeet, for the introduction. Thank you for the opportunity. I thank POS also for giving me the opportunity. It's a great day being in front of PK ma'am also. It's always nice to see you. And I think I'll be talking on giant retinal tear. And I know see the biggest thing with giant retinal tear is that there's a big tear about 9 degrees in retinal circumference. The only problem is they're about 0.05% per 100,000 cases. Now the thing is that the vitreous gel in these eyes is usually anteriorly attached. So the posterior vitreous is more mobile, and this tends to give you the mobility to the GRT and tends to fold over. So GRT of more than 180 degrees will tend to fold over, and that is what causes the urgency. So why is it a different brick in the wall? Is because more is the amount of cord exposed, more is the amount of retinal pigment, and the higher are the chances of developing PVR, which is about 15%, plus the advent of inflammation, hypotony, and the rapid progression of the falling back of the retina itself cause a problem. So this was what was explained by Shepin long way back. He said that the anterior liquefaction of the vitreous gel, the anterior vitreous becomes condensed and forms a membrane. This anterior vitreous, as it contracts from the periphery and equatorially, it produces a contraction that results into a break, and this break eventually causes the retina to fold down because the posterior vitreous is already detached. So, okay, sorry. So we know that the etiology is mostly variable. It is something idiopathic, sometimes due to trauma. Usually, high myopia for more than 8 diopters is a risk, and yes, it has been known by occur in acute retinal necrosis also. Some of the developmental collagen disorders like Ehlers-Danlos, Stickler syndrome, Marfan's, aniridia, and Lenz coloboma may also be in association-based cases. Now, the biggest thing that we have to look about is when you look at iatrogenic GRT, you need to remember that to see if there's the previous cataract surgery been done, if anything has been done, has required, it's been even full surgery, especially when you have a nucleus drop and you fish around for nucleus. It H12G pulls up the vitreous and that can result into a GRT. Even in VR surgeries, this can actually happen if we previously in the era of 20 gauge vitrectomies, when if you have a large leaking sclerotomy, it causes regular prolapse of the vitreous gel. If in extraction of the foreign body also, because if there's too much frequent exchange of instruments itself, you might be pulling the vitreous alongside, even while you're causing a relaxing retinotomy. Pneumatic ataxia has often proposed to cause a genital tear, even if we have been reported cases after refractive surgeries, after phakic and implantation. Now, the basic differentiation is very simple. You have a GRT in which there's a separation between two different segments. The posterior flap has tendency to fall over, and this progresses rapidly. On the other hand, if you have a giant retinal dialysis, there's a disinsertion at the level of the ora serrata. The vitreous bridges the dialysis gap and is attached to the posterior margin. So the PVD is usually absent. Detachment is really slow in progression, and the treatment is totally sometimes different. Ultrasound may show you a double linear echo in which you will see a folded retina on top of each other, and this is very pathognomonic of a GRT. So what is the management? The management nowadays, with the advent of the MIVS, I think is assisted with the vitrectomy with LPFC and a silicone oil tamponade that gives you much better results. And the success, which was variable for about 58% back in the day, has now gone up to about 90%. Scleral buckling, I don't know if I've ever done a scleral buckle for, back in my fellowship days, I've seen one of the cases in which a nasal GRT was buckled by TSA, and it was a very well-attached retina. So to put it in cerclage or not, maybe yes, if you have abnormal base adhesions and to support the horns, especially if you have a inferior GRT, I do not use a belt buckle at all. But in case if you have a GRT of more than 180 degrees, you don't really need it because most of the vitreous is already separated. So putting a GRT to support the horns, I doubt it will be of any venture. So, but a belt buckle is definitely required if you have a pre-existing PVR. That definitely goes in support. If it's a peripheral PVR, then it's good to put a belt buckle. And a genital dialysis needs a shallow buckle with a belt buckle and cerclage alongside with it. So lensectomy, in my regard, would be that if it's a significant cataract, there is some amount of lens subluxation, and if you have a presence of peripheral PVR, need to do a good dissection, then it's good to remove the lens alongside the case. In vitrectomy, because as it says, the total PVD is already present, and vitreous lies more of anteriorly, so it's easy to remove it. Managing the hypotony, I think we can use XM infusion cannula and maximum debulking of the vitreous base. The entire flap that needs to be properly taken care of. You're starting the case, I think it's very important to remove the entire condensed vitreous at first and then go down. You can see the contracted vitreous as you remove it, and this is what helps you further on. So I think the thorough vitrectomy all through. This is a 180-degree GRT with a folded flap. This is a superior GRT, so it was easy to, most of the vitreous you can see is pretty much readily detached, so you can go ahead with that. And following this, so as the flap tends to be mobile, so care needs to be taken while you're cutting the vitreous alongside the flap, not to nibble the flap and cause a bleed or to produce a bleeder. And the posterior pole, if you think that the flap is too mobile, I think it will be kept down by using a PFC bubble. The most important part is doing a good base suction and to the maximum amount in this, and especially around the horns, because the horns at which the edges of the flap is, the GRT is torn apart, is the maximum side where the PVR can occur in the postoperative period. So this is where we're showing that the vitreous is being properly trimmed around the horns. I even remove and excise the entire left retinal tissue. I don't really keep it because of the risk of developing into PVR. So maximum excision to the maximum point I do. I don't let it be there for a while. I trim off all the retina also, because the devitalized retina, it's not going to do anything else. Might as well serve as a scaffold for developing PVR. So removing it is much more essential. So second part is marking the break. It's good to use an diathermy along the tear edge of the GRT, because one gives you hemostasis for the amputated retinal vessels, and also it lets you see once you settle the retina with the LPFC, it lets you see the edge of the break while if you want to do a laser. So lateral extent of tear can be helpful, and cautery should be as gentle as possible so not to contract the retina itself. So the unfolding of retina, I think the PFCL has been the greatest thought over process over this break, because by injecting the PFCL over the optic disc, it ensures that there's a single large bubble and that you cover along the peripheral edges and make sure that all the PVR is already removed. You can even tilt the eye away from the break so as to display some amount of subretinal fluid. And I think a soft tip cannula can be used to just unroll the retina. So why does the PFCL help? The specific gravity is greater than water. It's transparent. It's low viscosity. It's odorless, stable at high temperature. So even a laser can be done through it. And it's an excellent tamponade for a minimal time. But it is a heavy molecule. It tends to, if you push the retina way too fast while unfolding the retina, sometimes you can actually create another break. So this is a video of the PFCL, slow PFCL injection over the retina. You can see how the GRT just flattens through. Injecting it over the disc just ensures that you don't create a secondary break right at the posterior pole. And as you settle the retina, it just goes back very well. So converting to 360 retinotomy, I am not in favor of it, but in case you have a peripheral non-settling PVR, if you have a lot of contraction, I think you can convert to a 360-degree retinotomy and settle it with the PFCL. Converting to a retinotomy does not worsen the prognosis in view that extreme distortion has to be managed. Sometimes the macula itself may get distorted. So there's a tendency of macula to be shifted to abnormal locations. So laser should be applied in 2 to 3 rows along the posterior edge of a tear in a continuous manner. Moderate intensity burns simply 1.5 width apart. More generous barricade has to be done along the horns. There's a lot of talk about whether cryopexy can be done along with this. I think cryopexy should be limited in these cases because already a lot of choroid is exposed. I just do it to the horns just to give an extra tamponade or maybe an extra adhesion, and so that minimal pigment dispersion is there. So this is just a video showing a good laser being done around 360 degrees. I do about 4 to 5 rows, especially in GRT cases, about 4 to 5 rows all throughout. So preferential internal tamponade, I think for all GRT cases would be a gas. I've not, would be oil, sorry. Gas is not my tamponade choice. Silicon oil is a preferential choice to provide the extended period of support. The presence of PVR primarily in GRT or suspected poor compliance with positioning. The use of silicon oil is necessity. And while choosing the entire tamponade, there are two ways in which we can settle the retina. We can do a PFCL air exchange. The only problem while doing a PFCL air exchange is the slippage that can occur at the edges of the GRT flap when you're settling the retina. So, and there can also be a posterior entrapment of the air bubble behind the retina. So you might actually have to go back again and resettle it again. So I think the best would be to do a direct exchange, and the fluid exchange can is a critical step. An improper technique can result in a slippage. So this is just a idea of showing how it was done before the advent of the PFCL. This is a Stryker frame. This is in which the retina is first settled and the whole table is inverted. And then again, FG is done and settled from below upwards. This is how it used to be done before. And then laser was done with the patient, the doctor lying upside down, the patient would sit like this after the surgery. So the preferential technique is direct PFCL silicon oil exchange. This gives you a least chance of retinal slippage. But the care has to be done that when you're injecting SOL and removing the PFCL, you have to go to the edge, especially at the GR edge, and make sure that you don't make sure there's no fluid there. Otherwise, it will slip down the edge and would result into a peripheral subretinal fluid. So this is me. I replaced the cannula and put it directly, replacing feeding cannula with the silicone injection directly, and then you can just remove the SI of the thing. The care has to be done by balancing the SPFC removal with the silicone oil injection. So I think the alternative to this technique is if you think that the patient you're not able to settle it, just keep the LPSC in for 5 to 10 days, but you have to remove it after 5 days because the weight of itself of the PFCL can damage the retinal layers. Or you can use a heavy silicone oil such as Danceron. The subject to question is always the fellow eye management, because the incidence for the fellow eye to develop a GRT is also about 14%, and there can be a presence of about 36% of breaks in the other eye. And the basic risk factors for these cases in studies has been the risk of high myopia, the increasing wide without pressure areas, and increased vitreous condensation. So I leave it to the panel if they think that prophylactic treatment for 3 degrees is the way to go for the other eye. I have not done it till now. I still wait and watch. But in case of Marfan cases, I do keep them on a close watch. Literature shows no definite consensus whether or not we need to treat the other eye. So in conclusion, the modern vitrectomy techniques with MIVS and PFCLs and Chandler illuminations and the wall cameras have dramatically improved our anatomic success in management of these GRT attachments. And the most important pearls in management is that you have to trim the edges of the tear well, identify all the distant breaks, inject PFCL as a single bubble, and removing all the interior fluid and drying the edges of the break thoroughly to prevent slippage. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan. Can you stop sharing screen now? Sorry, Dr. Abhinav. Yeah. Nice presentation, Abhinav. 2-3 things that come to my mind is for discussion is like about the role of laser. You said 3 to 4 layer rows of laser you do around the tear. So I'd like to ask the panel what is their view, whether they do a light laser or they do a heavy laser in these cases. Dr. Dinesh, I'll start with you first.
Invariably, we do 3 layers or 3 rows of laser and do a 360-degree laser. And I do a direct fluid exchange, this silicone oil PFCL exchange directly. And I think that's...
Dr. Subina, would you like to add something?
No, yeah,
about laser and direct fluid exchange.
I do direct. I do not do PFCL air exchange. I will do PFCL silicone oil exchange because
that's probably unanimous.
And the laser, whether you do a heavy laser or a small 3 layers, 2-3 rows only.
Heavy laser, but invariably our lasers are having problems. So I do heavy laser next post-op day definitely. On the table, I attempt doing heavy laser, but it lands up in little laser.
Dr. Vipin? So you unmute yourself. Unmute first.
I will do 3 rows of laser only in the area of the giant retinal tear and not all round now. Maybe 10 years ago, I was doing a 360 degrees laser. And in addition to that, sometimes I might have to do a cryo to the cornea of the giant retinal tear, because that is the area where the laser would sometimes not reach. And while you are indenting with the cryo, it's very important to keep a low indentation. Otherwise, sometimes some of the fluid can shift, some of the Ringer's lactate or BSS can shift to the subretinal space.
One more thing Abhinav has mentioned about is the giant retinal dialysis. Would you do a vitrectomy or a scleral buckling only?
Buckle only.
Indicated.
Buckle only.
Buckle is indicated.
I think giant retinal dialysis up to 90 degree, 120 degrees settle with the buckle only. Scleral buckle only. You don't need to do vitrectomy for them. Dr. Ram, your views on this?
Hello, Dr. Sangeet. The GRTs, as per se, Dr. Abhinav has actually dealt very well. So what I see in a GRT, because before putting PFCL, the highlight removal is very important, because we all feel that in young eyes, the GRT is there, the Marfan eyes, the PVD is there, but most of the time the PVD is not there. So before injecting a drop of a PFCL there, just put in a tricot and try to detach the hyaloid from the center, and then put a PFCL in that bubble, and then you complete your vitrectomy, because the chances of ERM formation and redetachment are very high. And of course, I am like Dr. Vipin said, I do laser that way only, but I do continuous laser in the area of GRT only. And I am fond of doing this PFCL silicon oil exchange using a chandelier technique. This is what I do, especially in case of inferior GRTs. But I find this technique by Dr. Steve Charles, leaving PFCL for a few days and then doing exchange, I think that is also upcoming. Yeah.
You just mentioned this removing the hyaloid. I remember one case. It was a young child, traumatic injury and a giant retinal tear. And the tear was folded over the disc. It was almost 180 degrees folded over the disc. So how will you proceed with this case? Because there was no PVD. And how will you proceed with this case? Really difficult time using PVD. That was a long time ago, but I really had a difficult time in using. The tear was folded, and there was how do you start in using PVD?
I think Dr. Sangeet, with the scraper there, you have to unfold the retina and let it go little. Let those two layers separate from each other, and you should use a scraper there. And then before once I can see that the posterior two retinas are separated enough, then I will go in at the disc and apply some suction there and to remove the hyaloid. But I will not inject PFCL to set these retinas apart first, because I will lose my hyaloid, because that will be giving me a pseudo feeling that hyaloid is not there, because PFCL, if I put, it will invariably push the retina back and you feel that everything is done.
Can you use Visco instead of PFCL in these type of cases?
I've never used it, but I think it will not make any make any difference, because if you find a plane, then you put a Visco under that plane or do a proportional reflux, that kind of a thing. But I don't think PFCL should help in that actually.
Dr. Praveen, you'd like to say something?
Yeah,
Giant
so
retinal
it's
tears,
a
different?
difficult situation, and I have done quite a few pediatric GRTs, which really they don't behave the same as adult. So a little trick that I use is that, as you said, that the retina is folded. So what you do is you inject very small amount of PFCL, just maybe a quarter cc or something, and use it in such a way that you tilt the eye temporally. So once you tilt the eye temporally, the fold, if the fold is temporal, so it kind of little bit opens it up and gives you space to induce your PVD nasal to the disc. So after you've injected a small bubble of PFCL, now you inject your tricot over the disc and start feeling anteriorly nasally. So once you have done this, got a small opening there, now this PFCL will actually go under the hyaloid and the retina and go on giving you a cleavage as you go anteriorly. So it will help you and work as a third hand. But I agree with Dr. Ramandeep, only a small amount of PFCL. If you inject too much, then it is very difficult to catch hold of the hyaloid from anywhere else other than the disc. So small amount so that your half of the disc is temporal to the disc is covered with PFCL so that your flap doesn't keep coming. And nasally, you can go on, inducing your PVD. And as the little opening is created, this PFCL bubble will actually move inside and give you that separation between the retina and the hyaloid, and you can feel it up. It's easier said
right.
than done, but I think this works many a times.
Sangeet,
There's
can I
one
make a
question
point?
from Dr. Ripu. Sir, let me take the audience question. That is very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
This question is from Dr. Ripu Soni. He would like to know the role of 360-degree barrage laser in the contralateral eye. So anybody who wants to answer this?
I don't do it. Even
Guha,
for
you-
Marfan's, we are not doing it now. When initially when we were doing lensectomy or SFIUL, at that time it was considered that you should do 360-degree laser prophylactically. But nowadays we are not doing 360-degree laser at all. Only if there is any lattice or lattice with holes, we just cover that. And as far as Densiron or leaving a lighter PFCL like F6H8, I think they came initially, but the interest about Densiron and lighter PFCLs is decreasing or already gone actually.
I've burnt my hands not lasering the contralateral eye. Like Dr. Dinesh said earlier, we never used to do it. So we had a kid of Marfan syndrome, 360 degrees GRT. The retina is collapsed. We do good job in that eye. The retina settles. And we call him for laser in the contralateral eye. Somehow we lost interest. We said, okay, we'll do laser tomorrow. And the patient comes back. We just did localized laser because the child will not cooperate for that much for laser. Under GA, the children cooperate. So we did localized laser for the lattice. The patient gets 360 degrees GRT with retinal detachment, contralateral eye within 1 week. So I feel we should never leave our job undone, and we should do 360 degrees, especially in children giant of Marfan's disease. We should go ahead with 360 degrees laser. Your opinion, I don't know. So I don't leave it now.
I'd also prefer in Marfan syndrome.
Yeah.
Now also I'm doing laser 360 degree in the other eye also. And even if the patient does not have a detachment, I sometimes prefer to advise laser to him. One more question from Dr. Akshay Khera, not related to giant retinal tear, but to the panel. He is asking whether do you use TPA in older subretinal hemorrhages? Dr. Guha, would you like to answer this?
Yeah. So you're directing to me the question asked by my friend Akshay Khera. Fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I work with him in Tashkent, and I have a great pleasure working with Akshay. He's a great retina surgeon. So Akshay uses a lot of TPA when I'm not there. So in technique submacular hemorrhages, but here my main problem is that for procurement of TPA, but I agree with him that yes, if anybody has access to TPA, one can use some. But my technique, since I don't have recourse to TPA, access to TPA, I usually go in with a 41 gauge cannula. He knows that, and create detachments, detachment in the attached retina, and do a 360 retinotomy and take out the submacular hemorrhage. I've shown videos all over, Sangeet. So that's my technique. And if I come nowadays, I'm combining that technique with autologous RP choroid patch grafting too.
One last question from the audience, Dr. Nikita Gupta. She wants to ask, when can gas tamponade work in superior giant retinal tears? Dr. Vipin, what would you like to say on this?
Definitely. I was also trained like Abhinav in Shankar Netralaya, and I am very fond of gas oil. But yes, definitely it can be used, and many people are using it.